Okay, thanks guys. Stop clapping, we don't have a lot of time. We're going to try to cram in a whole lot of information into even less time than normal. I want to respect people's time. I want to try to get people who need to be out of here right at 1, out of here at 1. I'm going to do my very best. I tend to be a little loquacious. I'm going to try to edit myself. But there's some very practical stuff, getting you guys nosing and tasting tequila, that I really want to get to as soon as we can so that this is as practical as possible. A couple housekeeping things. I have an outline here. There's not nearly enough for everybody. I apologize. Please share with your neighbor. I think we should just about have enough for every other person. If you're illiterate or you don't like to take notes, don't take one. There's no answers on this. There's nothing on there that you really need. In fact, I can email a copy to Deb and she can get them to you guys if you want. It's simply an outline. If you're a note taker, it'll help you kind of organize your thoughts. There might be a few answers on there, but I don't like to give a lot of stuff away in the outline to keep so that I can keep you guys interested. This dovetails really nicely with some of the stuff that Heather Ann and Deb and Dawn were saying in terms of creating an experience for people here at Taco Lu, in terms of educating people and getting them on board with Mexican food they might not be familiar with, going beyond the enchilada, going beyond the quesadilla. Tequila is part and parcel of this cuisine, and there is a universe to tequila that most people do not know anything about. Now, some of y'all, especially folks I know from last year and folks who are behind the bar a lot, love this stuff and are as fascinated about this stuff as I am. Some of you might find after today or as you continue to work here that it becomes more interesting to you than you once thought it was. Some of you might not ever care any more than you do right now about tequila, and that's okay, because you wouldn't be here on a day off giving up a couple hours of your time if you didn't want to make some money here, right? Either that or, I mean, we got, what, 60 people here? Job market must be really tough here. You guys show up on MLK Day for a training. You're here for a reason, and everybody's here probably amongst other reasons to make some money. There's a tequila coming out right now for purposes of time. Please do not do anything with this tequila. You'll get a lot more out of this if you just leave it alone and let us go through it all together. So if you want to take home more money at the end of the day, this is the way it's going to help you do that. Everybody turn around and look at the bar. Please, everybody look at that bar no matter how many times you've looked at it. You guys have a hell of a tequila selection here, and every single one of those tequilas has a story behind it. Now, we're not going to get into the stories of individual tequilas right now. We're going to talk about the story of tequila in general. But there's a depth and a profundity to this spirit and a uniqueness that sets it apart and that gives you guys a big leg up on people selling other spirits. There's literally nothing like this in the world. And if you look back there, every single one of those products has its own story. And you can get into those particular stories and lead people down the road of trying new stuff that they haven't tried before. We have to jump right into what is tequila. For tequila to be called such, it's got to meet 3 conditions. And I usually like to make this really fun and interactive and have you guys talk. I'm just going to lecture you because purposes of time and the group is so big. So I apologize especially to folks who have heard this song and dance before, but we got to get right into this to make it through in a timely manner. Tequila is from Mexico by definition. There's no such thing as a tequila that's not from Mexico.
Don't drink this.
Yeah. Tequila in particular is from the tequila region in Mexico, which we're going to see where it is right now. And tequila is made from one primary raw ingredient, which is the blue agave. Okay? Don't worry too much about the screen. I have some photos and some stuff like that. We might not have any time to get into the real visually interesting stuff. There's an outline of this on your paper. Those are the definitional elements of tequila, with the addition of one thing that's really, really crucial. So we've got a particular region in Mexico, a particular plant that all tequila is made from, and less visually interesting or less sexy is the bureaucratic procedure. Tequila is made according to a specific set of laws and regulations called the official Mexican norm on tequila, la norma oficial mexicana. 006 sobre tequila. That is on every single bottle of tequila, you will see the letters NOM. That's a set of rules enforced by an agency called the CRT, the Tequila Regulatory Council, el Consejo Regulador de Tequila. Both of those 3-letter acronyms are in every single bottle of tequila, and between them they'll have a 4-digit number. That number will be very, very important later, but we're going to leave it right there for now. We're going to get a little more into each of these 3 elements, but those are the 3 elements that makes tequila tequila. To have the word tequila on the label, it comes from Mexico's tequila region, it's made from the blue agave, and it's made according to the law on tequila as enforced by the CRT. Okay. Mexico's tequila region. Everybody, I'm on the West Coast most of the time, so people like to go to Puerto Vallarta. Everybody know where Puerto Vallarta is? Puerto Vallarta is this little divot up here, this bay. This big pink thing is the state of Jalisco. 95% of all tequila comes from the state of Jalisco. That's kind of pulling that number out of the air, but well above 90% by volume comes from the state of Jalisco. Jalisco's capital is Guadalajara. Puerto Vallarta is the main tourist destination there. It's a big, old state in the center-west part of Mexico. Parts of 4 other states are also in the tequila region. Michoacan to the south, Guanajuato to the east, Nayarit to the northwest, and Tamaulipas way over on the Gulf Coast. 3 things I'll just throw out there because most tequila is from Jalisco, and that's the most basic thing you need to know. Like I said, every tequila has a story and some really, really basic, easy to remember, you might call it trivia, or you could call it production details about tequilas. One of the tequilas we're going to try today is Corralejo. Corralejo is the only tequila, everybody know it, big, tall, skinny bottles. That's the only tequila that you're going to find in the U.S. that's from the state of Guanajuato. Okay, that makes it unique. Maybe you love it, maybe you don't like it that much, maybe you hate it. Doesn't matter. That's a selling point about Corralejo. It's the only tequila from Guanajuato you're going to find in this country. The only tequila in this country you're going to find from Tamaulipas, in fact, the only tequila made there is Chinaco. Again, Chinaco, maybe you love it, maybe it's lukewarm for you, maybe you don't like it. Doesn't matter. You need to know that it's from Tamaulipas because that's something that's unique about that tequila. Casa Noble, which we've talked about a lot. I know you guys do a lot with Casa Noble. Whoever's working the dinner with me tonight, we're going to have some Casa Noble on the menu. Casa Noble's agaves are grown in Nayarit, where they don't make any tequila, but they do grow a fair amount of agave for the tequila production process. Remember that it's in Mexico and it's primarily from Jalisco. If you want to remember those other little selling points for these tequilas, I throw them out there because they're the only ones that you're going to see for the time being in this country that meet those characteristics. We're not going to talk a lot about terroir and growing regions right now, but this is a blow-up of the state of Jalisco, again, where almost all tequila comes from. We've got Puerto Vallarta here in the west. Guadalajara, the capital, Mexico's #2 city, is right in the heart there. To the west, you've got a little town called Tequila, about 45 minutes outside of Guadalajara. Tequila comes from a Nahuatl word, the indigenous language of the Aztecs. That was the lingua franca, or the most commonly spoken language in Mesoamerica before the Spanish got there. It means place that cuts, or place of cutting. It's named after a volcano which spewed out a bunch of lava rock and obsidian that they used to make their tools, their weapons. The name tequila refers to a place, right? People sometimes are very surprised to hear that, right? Just like Scotch comes from Scotland, also a place. Okay? This is the heart, this is the cradle of where tequila comes from, the Tequila Valley west of Guadalajara. What's important about this is that although Mexico has expanded the region that can legally produce tequila, tequila has an internationally recognized denomination of origin, or DO, also called appellation of origin, or AO. If you drink fancy European wines, you're going to see versions of that term in English, French, Spanish, Portuguese on wine labels. What that means is this is a product that can only come from one place in the world. And nobody else in the rest of the world has the right legally to produce a product and call it that name. So when you guys are specializing in tequila, you should take the pride in this and instill in people the understanding and the appreciation that this is up there with Scotch, cognac, champagne, all these other fine products, in this particular alcoholic products, spirits in the case of tequila, Scotch, and cognac, that the world has recognized for a long time as unique to a particular area and coming from a very old tradition. The story of tequila goes back at least 500 years. If you think that there's anything that's lower grade, lower class about tequila than about Scotch and cognac, then you need to hold up and educate yourself. You guys need to be approaching this and presenting this to people like you're working at a fancy Scotch bar, like you're working at a fancy cognac place, because that's what's behind the bar. There are people all over the world that would do horrible, filthy, disgusting things to have access to this product line. Nowhere outside of the United States has the access, even in Mexico. In Mexico, believe it or not, unless you're in a very high-end place in one of the big cities, you don't have access to all these products. The United States consumes more tequila than any other country in the world. The margarita has been our #1 cocktail for many years. And tequila, while still a small niche market, is the fastest growing spirit category in the country. So take pride in what's back there and take the time to learn a little bit about what's back there. Smell stuff. You don't have to taste everything. You can get 80% of a product's profile just by smelling it. Someone orders something, smell it when it's behind the bar. Yeah, you're staying after work to have a cocktail or a beer, have the bartender pour you a little sample that you can at least smell and taste on some of this stuff. Get to know the different classes and categories of tequila. Okay, the blue agave. Whoops. The blue agave looks like that. It's not actually a cactus, but if you back your ass into it, it feels a lot like a cactus. It's got very sharp thorns. It happens. They go in deep. It's got very sharp thorns. It's a succulent. This is one species of agave. Tequila is made from one species of agave only. We call it the blue agave for short. It's the agave tequilana Weber blue variety. Scientifically, blue agave goes down a lot smoother. There are around 180 species of agave, most of which are native to Mexico. This is the only one that tequila is made from. Now you guys have a nice mezcal selection over there on the left-hand side. Mezcal is something different. If we have time, or if you want to ask me afterwards, we can talk a little bit about that. Mezcal can be made from any agave. It's usually made from the espadin agave, which is an ancestor of this one. But tequila is made from the blue agave. Why is this important? This is crucial. Well, no other spirit in the world besides agave spirits, mezcals and tequila, are made from this. This is a plant that minimum takes 6 years to grow and reach maturity. Maximum 10, maybe even up to 12 years in the highlands. The worst, most horrible, cheap, rot gut tequila that you guys would never even sell here took 6 years plus to make. Yeah? And it's harvested by skilled labor. It's cooked, usually in old brick ovens. This is a product that takes a really long time to make and involves a lot of labor. This plant, from a sensorial perspective, is also crucially important because this gives us a white spirit, the blancos or the silvers or the platas or the cristal. This class of tequila is the most aromatically complex white spirit in the world. Now, a lot of people will say, well, the most complex spirit is Scotch, and that very well may be true, but the entire Scotch tradition is built around a barrel. Right? The fanciest Scotch, the most expensive Scotch, the nicest Scotch you'll ever have, when it came out of that still, when it was a raw distillate, did they bottle it and sell it? Did they drink it? No, they didn't want to know it. They put it in a barrel for 8, 10, 15, 20 years because that tradition is built around a barrel. Tequila, on the other hand, in its raw, white, unaged form is supposed to be complex, sippable, and enjoyable. That makes it almost unique. And the reason it can be like that is because this plant contains so many complex sugars that give us diverse aromatic and flavor elements before it even gets into the barrel, which adds a whole other set of things. Okay? This is what it looks like in the field. You guys, in Florida, it's kind of easy because you guys have so many other, you guys got all these decorative agaves all over the place. This agave doesn't grow up here. It's too wet here. It needs more aridity, and we're also kind of too low. We need to be a little higher elevation. This is the main way it reproduces, through clones called hijuelos. This is the way it reproduces with a flower stalk. You can tell it's related to the asparagus, but these will generally be cut down before they get any bigger than that. Because like all living things, the plant wants to make babies, and like most humans, what we want the plant to do is give us booze. So we castrate it, no babies for the plant, so that there's more booze for us. It's the way of the jungle. Okay. Again, I'm going through this. That gives you a sense. That guy's about 6 feet tall. That gives you the sense of the size of some of these guys, these plants. Okay, I'm going to continue to breeze through this so that we can get into the practical stuff, and then if there's time left, we can get into some more details. And if folks have time afterwards, or want to hang out, or want to go to lunch, especially if you want to get deeper into stuff, I got all day until we have to get ready for tonight. This business about the official Mexican norm and the Tequila Regulatory Council meshes in nicely with the agave. When we have a Scotch, when we have a cognac, when we have any other nice fancy spirit, what are those things made from? What are their raw ingredients? Wheat, hops, rye. Whiskeys are made from grains. What about other stuff? What about brandy, cognac? What's that made from? Grapes. Yeah, it's distilled wine. Yeah. Vodka, what's vodka made from? Anything. It's true. You can make vodka out of sugar packets, right? Vodka is a category that in the United States is by definition colorless, odorless, flavorless, made from any sugar source. Why do you think it's so marketed so strongly? Because it's all the same. For the most part, it's all the same. Yeah? It's meant to be a mixer. Right? Not a lot of people sit around sipping vodka. Right? There's no point. Yeah. The complexity of the sugars in your raw ingredient, and all alcohol comes from sugar, in case you don't know. Our buddies, the yeast, have this wonderful ability to eat sugar and piss alcohol, right? And all the alcohol that we enjoy comes from that process. We'd say excrete to make us feel a little less disgusting. Yeah? But it all comes from sugar. that's fermented into alcohol. In the case of spirits, liquor, it's distilled to a higher concentration of alcohol. The complexity of your raw ingredient is going to directly impact the complexity of the aromas and flavors in your final product. Grain, not very complex. Grapes, way more complex. Agave, more complex still. Chemically, we can objectively identify 600 distinct chemical aromatic possibilities in the blue agave alone. Now, you're not going to get 600 in any one tequila, but that's the range that we're talking about. This is all going to be overseen by the Tequila Regulatory Council. What that means is, when you plant your agave, this picture doesn't really make sense with what I'm talking about. They're doing genetic analysis of different agaves here, but it looks very fancy, right? When you plant your blue agave, if you're going to use it to make tequila, which is the main reason you would plant blue agave, you have 1 year to register that field with the Tequila Regulatory Council. The council is going to map and tag by satellite every single plant in your field. And they're going to be monitored over the course of their lifetime, 6 to 10 years. They're going to measure the inputs and the outputs at every stage of the process. Of your milling, of your fermentation, of your distillation, of your aging, if you're doing aging, and of your bottling. This is the most highly regulated distilled spirit in the world. Every single step of this process is tightly regulated. Why? Well, there's a lot of money involved in this, and it's an incredibly important part of the Mexican culture. If you go anywhere in the world, if you throw a dart at the map, if you go to Kazakhstan, if you go somewhere that you hardly ever think about, and you find someone and you say, what do you know about Mexico? 9 out of 10 people are going to say tequila. If they've never been there, if they can't even find it on the map. Mexico knows this. Mexico knows that they're identified with tequila. And if you think that, I know you guys are all very, very young, but you may have heard that once upon a time there was a lot of crap tequila and this stuff wasn't really available. It's true. In the early 90s, this industry decided to take itself seriously. And tequila got better because they imposed this system of regulation. Every single batch, every single lot of tequila made, whether it's made by Jose Cuervo, who's churning out stuff 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, or whether it's made in a small batch process by one family, every single lot of every single tequila made is checked in 2 laboratories. The distillery has a laboratory, the CRT has their own laboratory, and both places keep a sample of every single batch for 1 year. You can trace any bottle of tequila at that bar by a lot number that's printed on it back to the original production and know exactly when and how it was made. No other distilled spirit in the world can say that. Now, if we add this really, really stringent regulatory process to this blue agave that takes 6, 8, 10 years to mature, we're talking about a product that's necessarily expensive, right? The best whiskey in the world is a grain that took a year to grow. Some places you could turn around corn in 2 crops a year and make a bourbon. The worst tequila in the world took 6 years to make. There's cheap tequilas, absolutely. But at the same level of quality, tequila is necessarily going to be more expensive than other spirits. And that's important for you guys to know. If you guys get questions, pushback, why is this stuff so expensive? How is it that something that's been in a barrel only 3 years costs $70 a shot? Whereas for $70 I can get a 25-year-old scotch. You got to know why. The reason is the raw material. The reason is the raw material that took 6 to 10 years to grow and was harvested and maintained by skilled labor. And we can make guarantees about tequila because of this regulatory system about its safety and quality that no other spirit in the world can make. We're jumping ahead a little bit because we haven't talked about what and why the barrel's for, but to get into the barrel for a second, this is the last point I want to make about the regulatory system, the Tequila Regulatory Council, and the official norm. Tequila is rested and aged for certain classes in wood containers, whether big wooden vats or small barrels. In either case, this is a barrel. Underneath this, we have a cork. Whenever tequila goes into a wooden vat or barrel to be rested or aged, an inspector from the Regulatory Council has to be there. They seal it. It's numbered by the lot. It's listed as one barrel in a lot of X number of barrels. It's signed and it's dated. If you want to take that tequila out to sample it, to blend it, to bottle it, to eventually sell it, the inspector has to be there when that seal's broken. This is all done to ensure that the process is not adulterated. So that when you see a bottle of tequila, you know that it's actually tequila. And guess what? Part of the problem in the rest of the world, and part of the reason people are so jealous of the selection we have in this country is that this stuff isn't as closely monitored in other parts of the world. I've ordered tequila in London and just been like, this is not even tequila. And you can tell. So we have certain guarantees about tequila, especially the category of tequila you have here, that can't be made in other parts of the world or about other spirit categories. Okay, if you zone out or if you're a real lightweight and even smelling a couple cocktails is going to get you hammered, focus right here for 15 seconds. This is the most important thing I'm going to say all day long. And if you only ever teach your customers one thing about tequila, teach them this. There are two categories of tequila. The good one is 100% agave tequila. You guys have 100% agave tequila in your well. That sets you apart from the vast majority of bars in the entire world. And I can't emphasize that enough. The other category of tequila is just going to say plain old tequila. You guys don't even have a mixto at your bar, I don't think. We call it mixto. It means the sugar source is mixed. If it says tequila... Oh, okay. Well, supposedly that's a higher proportion mixto. It's a tequila a lot of people like. So there's one mixto there. Mixto is Spanish for mixed. It's a really tricky language, and it means that your sugar source is mixed. If it says 100% agave on the label, we know there's three things we know about all tequila: Mexico, blue agave, Tequila Regulatory Council. We also know that all of the sugar that became alcohol came only from that blue agave. If it doesn't say 100% agave, and I don't care what any rep, salesman, or other bullshit artist tries to tell you, God bless them. Oh, it doesn't say 100%, but it's just because blah, 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 blah. Bull. If it doesn't say 100% agave, we have to assume that it only has 51% of its sugar source being from the agave. 49%, where can that come from? It's like vodka. What do you got? Cane, beets, corn. These days it's a lot of high fructose corn syrup coming down from the Midwest. Now that does a few things. It brings the price down, right? Because only half of your product plus 1% is agave, which is very, very expensive. So it brings your price way down. It changes the flavor. If you're drinking tequila, presumably it's because you like something about the way tequila tastes, right? And tequila should taste like agave, at least in its white form, and even in its aged forms, that agave is the basis of it. So why adulterate it? And this is something, tequila that's mixto, it's a legitimate legal form of tequila. I'm a total snob about it. I think that anybody who can come here and has money to eat out at dinner, there's no reason they should be drinking a bottom-end mixto. The fact that you guys have 100% agave tequila in your well is something you have to know and be able to explain to people why that's important. When people, I guarantee when people go anywhere else around here and they just order the house margarita, it's not 100% agave. I can't actually guarantee that, but I would bet money on it. I bet $50 on that right now, and I've only been here once before in my life. That's just the state of the industry. You guys need to emphasize that to people, especially if people ever give you any flack about price. We only carry 100% agave tequila in our well. You can put an asterisk by the Hussongs. Yeah? We only carry 100%. Our well is 100% agave tequila. And there's probably nobody that's remotely competitive with you guys in this entire town that can say that. Okay, Milagro is a respectable tequila. It's 100% agave tequila. And you guys should really, really emphasize that. The other thing about mixtos versus 100% agave, a lot of that famous tequila hangover, let's be honest, a lot of that is because most people drink tequila when they're really ready to tie one on, or have people tell me, oh man, I was doing okay last night, but it was that tequila shot I had at the end of the night. Really? What else did you have? Well, I had like 6 beers, and then 2 red wines, and then I had a rum and coke, but it was that tequila shot at the end that really made me sick. Because that's the attitude a lot of people bring to tequila. And if that's your style of drinking, that's fine. I'm not here to tell anybody how to drink. I hopefully can tell you how to taste.
We hear it all day.
Yeah.
I know I can't drink tequila. Why not? It's 80 proof, just like scotch or whatever.
Yep.
All day.
Yeah. And when I show you guys how to taste right now, these are techniques, and I know you guys, I was blown away. I came in last night, and I was like, man, you guys are killing it on a Sunday. And everybody was like, oh, this is the mellowest Sunday we've had in a long time. So I get that a lot of what I'm saying about teaching your customers, show them how to taste, I get that a bunch of you, 99% of the time, are not going to have the time to do that. Yeah? But maybe it's slow at some point. Or maybe you have this regular who's going deeper and deeper into your tequila list. And if you show them how to truly taste, if you take 5 minutes to show them how to truly taste, you're going to amplify their experience and their enjoyment so much, and that's going to come back to you. Yeah? which at the end of the day is one of the most important reasons why we're here. But a mixto tequila is not going to treat your body as nicely. And you can emphasize that to people as well. Look, you can order tequila from our bar with confidence and know that it's all asterisk 1, yeah, 100% agave tequila. All right. Now, when you look at the labels, for the most part, you're going to be able to say, okay, it's 100% agave tequila. So far, so good. Within that, we have 5 classes. You can call them types, you can call them ages. Technically, they're classes. They exist within the mixto category and within the 100% agave category. You've got your blanco, silver, plata, platino, cristal. Some of these are branding terms, yeah? But blanco means white, plata means silver. It's the clear stuff. Now, I am going to have you guys do your tasting with a blanco for several reasons, one of which is I really want people to understand that whether it's your particular cup of tea or not, that the idea that a silver is only for cocktails or only for shots is just bogus. This is the essence of tequila. This is where tequila started. There was no oak, there were no barrels in tequila until the late 19th century. The silver goes back to the 16th century. This is where you get the full-fledged agave flavor. Now, does that mean every silver up there is great and sippable? No. No. Some of them definitely are more for a mixer or for a shot, right? But the class of blancos is really, really misunderstood. And if people are really, and often statistically, this is not scientifically, but statistically when we've done polls and sampling, women tend to prefer blancos more than men. Women also, and this is scientific, tend to have more sensitive palates than men, all other things being equal. So very often, a woman who thinks she doesn't like tequila and definitely doesn't like the way her husband, date, partner, whatever smells, sometimes they're reacting to the wood in the añejos and the reposados and the extra añejos. Silvers can be a really, really good entry point, especially for female drinkers who don't think they want to drink tequila neat, including for folks in here. Try a silver. It might be more up your alley if you're not a whiskey person and you're used to the oak rested and aged types of tequila. So this is basically what comes out of the still. Yeah, this is the raw distillate brought down to 40% to make it a little bit softer. From there we have golds or jovens. You guys probably don't have any golds here. They're typically mixtos. They can be 100%. They're going to be either, if they're a mixto, they're going to have a bunch of cheap additives, mostly caramel. If they're 100%, they're going to be a blend of a silver and some of the older tequilas. Yeah. It's not a class that you're going to see a lot of 100% versions of. Reposados, it means rested. It's been in contact with oak for 2 months or more. This, for a lot of people, is going to be the most easy entry point, especially if they don't hate whiskey. When we're drinking whiskey, a lot of what we're tasting is barrel, is wood. Whiskey comes out white, just like tequila. Anything that you distill to this high degree of alcohol comes out of the still clear, because the things that give it color in its mash form, where it's more like a beer or a wine, they get distilled out of there, because mostly what we're distilling out is alcohols and other components that cling to the alcohols. The color in a spirit comes from the wood. It comes from the barrel that it's aged in or rested in. So a reposado is going to be a little bit softer for a lot of people's palates and have a little bit of that touch of wood. Sometimes it makes it a little more sweet. Sometimes it gives it some vanilla, some caramel that a lot of people are going to enjoy. If you have it in a small oak barrel and you leave it in there for a year or more, you can call it an añejo. Añejo meaning year old. From a year up, it's an añejo. Now, we have a big price jump here. There's a bit of a price jump from your blanco to your reposado. There's a pretty big price jump from your reposado to your añejo. Your next one is going to be an even bigger price jump. Again, for you guys to understand and be able to justify pricing, it's important that you know why that is. The Scotch makers have a term they call the angel share, which we've adopted in agave spirits. The angel share are what the angels drink out of your barrel. The barrel itself will absorb alcohol and slowly evaporate it out of the barrel. You lose product when you're aging it in a barrel. Now, Scotland, Kentucky, Tennessee, these main whiskey regions are pretty humid. Jalisco, where most tequila is from, is very dry. So even in a well-maintained barrel room, we're going to lose 10% or more every single year that it's in the barrel. So if you have a reposado that's in a tank for 2 months, you're not losing very much. If you have an añejo that's in a barrel for a year, you might lose 15% of that immediately. Our next and final class of tequila is extra añejo. It's in a small barrel for 3 years or more. You've easily lost a third of your product. Remember, all that product took 6 to 10 years to grow. Now it's been in a barrel for 3 years, so we're almost 10 years into a process, and a third of it is gone, right? Well, the producer's not going to eat that cost. We're going to pay for that, right? The consumer's going to pay for that. And that's why you have these big price jumps. It doesn't mean that the tequila's getting better. Now, people who are big into oak, people who are big whiskey drinkers, for them, it might be that they appreciate it and enjoy it more the more it's in the barrel. It usually depends on what line of tequila. Some people hit perfection at the reposado, and then it's so-so in the añejo. Some people like me are always going to gravitate down to the silver end of the spectrum because we like those really raw, fresh, earthy, dirty, herbal, spicy notes in the silvers. It's subjective. It's all about people's tastes. And I like that because I don't like to spend a lot of money, so it's lucky for me that my tastes gravitate towards that end of the spectrum. But if people want to know why these big price markups, that's why. When you have extra añejo like Partida Elegante or Herradura Selección Suprema is 5 years in the barrel. It's more than half gone. It makes sense that it's going to cost way more than twice what the silver cost. Yeah? Okay. So just to be perfectly clear, we have 100% agave, we have mixtos. Those 5 classes can exist in any of the 5. You guys are dealing almost exclusively with 100% agave here, and you've got your blanco, your reposado, your añejo, and your extra añejo. Can I get one of those samples? One of the. Oh no. You guys? Everybody needs one. Any questions about that stuff? No? Okay, I've got something I want you guys to do comparing glassware, but again, I'm going to try to cram the most important stuff into this first hour and get folks out of here that need to get out of here. So I want to go into how to taste. And if you look around, what we're going to skip over for now, and I'm going to ask that everybody do before they leave, whether we have time to do it together or not. Can folks that have those 4 different glasses at their tables just raise their hands so people know where they are? So we've got a table here. We've got 2 tables over by the bar. We've got 1 in the back. We just have 4. Or did you guys get one back there too? Okay, looks like I just got 4 out. We have the same product in 4 different glasses. And the vast majority of what people experience when they're tasting spirits is going to be the aroma, is going to be on the nose. If someone's not 21, if you're not 21, you can be smelling everything, and you can be learning a lot about these products. I want everybody to nose the 4 of those at some point before they leave. Oh, I see, yeah, we have 2 at each of these tables by the bar, so we can kind of split those up. I want everyone to take an opportunity to smell those 4 things and recognize that the glass that you're using matters. And I really want to make sure everyone does that, even if we don't have the time to do it together, because it's crucial for folks to know that. If you are bringing out a tequila, particularly a really nice tequila, in an inappropriate glass, people are not going to be able to smell it the way they should, which means they're not going to be able to taste it the way they should, which means they're going to feel like they got a $5 experience for a $30 tequila, which again is going to come back on you. Your glassware matters. Your glassware is crucial. Reasonable people can disagree on what type of glassware is most appropriate, but appropriate glassware for spirits is going to have a lot of air in it. It's going to have a lot of empty space. Now we're pouring really small samples here in really big glasses, so this is a little bit exaggerated, but you always want to have air in there. These aromas are actualized as the alcohols and esters and congeners and all these other compounds interact with the oxygen around them. Any glass that's filled up to the very top is not going to present as complex an aroma as any glass that has some air in there. When you're talking specifically about tequila, you ideally need a glass that has the space in there where you can give it an extreme tilt. I can't do this with a shot glass. I can do this with a snifter, I can do this with a wine glass, I can do this with a champagne glass. I can do this with a lot of different, a rocks glass. You want to have something that you can give an extreme tilt to. Why? Going back to the idea, to the fact that in its white form, tequila is the most aromatically complex white spirit in the world. There's a lot going on here. This isn't the most complex tequila in the world. This isn't the most well-made tequila in the world. Even so, there's a lot going on here. There are a lot of aromas that are evaporating at different speeds because they weigh different, they have different masses. They're evaporating at different speeds. If we hold this straight up and down, we're only going to smell one level of that aroma. If we hold it like this, we're going to approach the glass recognizing that there are 3 distinct zones to the glass. At the bottom we have zone 1, and you don't have to remember these terms, this is nerd stuff. Zone 1 at the bottom, we just made this up, right? But there's a zone at the bottom, call it zone 1, a zone in the middle, call it zone 2, a zone at the top, call it zone 3. When you're nosing tequila, and I'm a little bit congested, so I'm not on top of my game right now, and that means I'm going to really need to put my nose right in there. I don't have the most sensitive nose. It's taken me a lot of work to get to be the taster that I am, and I'm not great. I really am going to have to get my nose in there most of the time, especially if I'm a little bit congested. You got to have your mouth open. An unfortunate thing about this, no one looks cool. No one looks cool. If you're already a mouth breather, you're going to be in good company because we're all going to be mouth breathing. You got to have that mouth open because it's pulling more air into your mouth. It's getting it down on your taste buds. And you're going to approach it from the bottom. Again, I'm going to stick my schnoz right in there because I need to. You might not have to. If it really kicks you, pull your nose back a little bit. But everybody pick up your glass. Open your mouth. No pictures. And nose it from the bottom. The bottom is where the heaviest aromatic elements hang out. This is the agave, earth, and the cooking process. What does this smell like to folks?
Dirt.
Yeah. When we want to be fancy, we say earth. But yeah, it's a dirty aroma. Yeah, there's a really natural element there. Someone said grass. Yeah. These are classic agave elements. Now, does it smell more sweet, sour, salty, bitter, or umami? Sweet. Somebody say salty? You can smell sour. Okay. Typically, tequila is going to have an underlying note of sweetness. One of the reasons why I love the skinny margaritas with the agave nectar. Tequila's sweet. Yeah, I don't want too much sweetener in my margarita. That's a personal preference. But even a dry tequila is going to should have some underlying note of sweetness because the agave, if you haven't tasted agave nectar, taste it. Taste it before you leave today. You have to know, agave nectar has changed this business entirely because now everyone can know what agave tastes like. 5 years ago, you had to go on a tour with me and I was doing a lot better than I am now. You don't have to be as special now. You don't have to smuggle cooked agave back to the United States. Agave nectar really will help you zero your palate in on what tequila, especially in the silver form, is supposed to taste like. Okay, so I get some sweetness, some earthiness, some herbal stuff. When we talk about aromas with tequila, the first thing we want to talk about is the presence of the agave, which is essentially a sweetness, but kind of a vegetal, earthy sweetness, like a yam. And then we have 4, and again, we're rushing through this really fast. There's a lot of complexity potentially here. We have 4 major aroma categories that we just lifted from wine. Because why not? Wine people know what they're doing. They've been doing it for a lot longer than we've been doing this. 4 categories: fruit, spice, herb, and floral. That is as deep as 95% of the world ever needs to go. You talk about the agave presence, then you talk about those 4 aromatic categories. Now when you get into the wood, when you get into your reposados, especially your añejos, your extra añejos, your wood will give you other things, barrel aromas, vanilla, chocolate, coffee, sometimes hazelnut, soy, like soy sauce. Yeah? Smoke sometimes whiskey itself and oak itself. These are these kind of dark, some of them are sweet, some of them are savory aromas that we get from the wood. In the silvers, we're going to get those 4 aromatic and flavor categories, and those will carry over into the others as well. Now, whether you're like, oh yeah, those are the things I smelled, or you smelled something different and you didn't feel like saying it, or whether you think this is all a bunch of horse shit, I want everybody to try something which I think will seem less like horse shit to just about everybody. Regardless of what you smell at the bottom, or enjoy or don't enjoy, do this. As you inhale through your nose, remember your mouth is open, as you inhale through your nose, move the glass down. Shift it to where your nose goes from the bottom to the middle as you inhale like this. Do that and then start doing it all the way to the top. Nose around those 3 different areas of the glass. What's going on? It smells sweeter. Does it smell different down here than it does up here? Yeah. That is a very, very basic thing that you're going to get most people as unfamiliar with nosing spirits as they might be to appreciate. It smells different in different parts of the glass. Now, with our barreled Reposados, Añejos, and XAs, we're going to get some nice wood aromas at the top. A good Blanco shouldn't have too much going on at the top. Yeah. Now, if everybody perceived a little bit of a difference there, or most people, compare that with this. Do what most people are going to do, kind of shake it up a little bit, and then just go straight up and down and just give it a big huff. What does that smell like?
Denatured alcohol.
It smells like straight up alcohol for the most part. Now, you might have a particularly good nose, or the tequila might be particularly good, and you could get other stuff there. But the volatile alcohols, the ethanol, the least interesting part aromatically, is coming off fastest. Yeah? So when you hold this straight up and down, you're really making yourself fight through the least interesting, and for a lot of people, the least pleasant part of the experience to try to get to that other stuff. So hopefully everybody can see that this is different and not quite as good as this. And that's the basic bottom line with nosing it. Again, I understand a lot of you might not ever be able to have time to do this with people, but it'll help you as you evaluate what you have behind your bar. Now, tasting. And feel free to spit in something if you want to. It'd be good to get as many people as possible trying this, even if you're not a big drinker or you don't drink tequila at this point. This is crucial. And this stuff, I'll just say for the record, can be applied to any distilled spirit. The nosing thing, the glass, that's particular to tequila. This is stuff that will help you and your customers appreciate and enjoy any distilled spirit more. Rum, whiskey, gin, God forbid, vodka, whatever it is that people drink. This will help them. You have to realize that 40% alcohol is a hell of a lot. And that we're probably really, biologically speaking, not supposed to drink this stuff. This is a really recent human innovation, distillation. Fermentation's been around for a long time. Fermentation happens naturally. That's why practically every culture in the world has some kind of beer or wine, right? Your crop starts going bad, you're eventually going to get wine. I discovered wine completely independently when I was about 7 years old in a Smurf's thermos. It was really hot where I grew up, and I had grape juice, and I left my lunchbox at school over the weekend, and on Monday I had wine. I didn't know that's what I had, but I was feeling really good on Monday. Cultures around the world have had this experience over and over, right? You get water in your grain silo, and it starts to go off, you get beer. Any fruit starts to go off, you're going to get wine. We've had a long time to adjust ourselves as human beings and as cultures to fermented alcohol. Distillation comes way later and takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of ingenuity, takes a high division of labor in the society. Your mouth is going to freak out. Your mouth is supposed to freak out when you put this stuff in it. I don't care. We got some real drunks in this room. And I don't care if you've managed to turn that signal all the way down or not. Every single one of us, some of you might have done shots in the car or something, but for the rest of us, the first time you put straight distilled liquor into your mouth that day, your mouth panics. That's what it's there for. That's one of the things it's there for. Your mouth, those mucous membranes are supposed to send a distress signal to your brain and say, whoa, hold up. And it's going to do that, whether you've tuned it out already or not. Right? And with most people who are coming in here who probably don't sit around sipping spirits all day like I do, right? They're going to be highly sensitive to that reaction. What you have to show them to do, and what we're going to do right now, is allow that reaction to happen and get past it. The first time you put a sip in your mouth, you're not tasting. You're not tasting. You're not ready to taste. You're reacting. And you have to allow that reaction to happen and think of it as a warm-up. And you have to be very deliberate about how you do this. I'm dragging it out and making a big deal out of it to make sure everybody gets it. But you can do this in 10 seconds. I'm going to take a tiny, tiny sip, like the tiniest sip I can manage. And I'm going to use my tongue to work that booze into my top gums, into my bottom gums, rub it into the roof of my, some of you are like, fucking finally. Yeah? And rub it into the roof of my mouth and then swallow. Guess what? It's not going to be entirely pleasant for most of us. It's okay. You're not tasting yet. So everybody just take a little sip, move this around your mouth, swallow, spit, whatever you need to do. Now, if you've never put booze on your gums directly on purpose before, it's kind of a shock. Yeah. And probably everybody had some part of that experience that's not entirely pleasant. Some of us probably experienced it as very unpleasant. We're doing a few things here. We're physically rinsing our mouth out, right? Chips, margarita, whatever the hell else you had in your mouth, I don't need to know. You're getting that out of there. You're also acclimating those mucous membranes and by extension your brain to the fact that we're going to be sipping some booze. Just like you probably don't even notice what music's on half the time you're working because it's not important. Your brain, and it's like the same shit every night probably. Your brain blocks that out to focus on the input that matters. We can also train our brain very, very quickly to get rid of that unpleasant sensation. The second time we do this, we're ready to taste. The mouth is now warmed up. The only other element we have to add is air. Just like when we're smelling, the oxygen is crucial. When we're tasting, the oxygen is crucial too. People think you taste with your tongue. Your tongue does a lot of heavy lifting. But you're tasting with your whole mouth and with your nose as well. So when I do this, and I'm gonna do it really big and exaggerated so people get the point. And you have to think about it a little bit the first time you do it. You have to have air in your lungs when you take a sip. But don't choke. Usually in the group this size, someone's gonna sputter. So I take a big deep breath to exaggerate, hold the air in my lungs. I'm taking an equally small sip. I don't got to do the whole rigmarole with my gums this time. But I'm going to swish it over the top of my tongue. Just make sure the whole top of my tongue gets some love. 3-4 seconds. I'm going to swallow and then I'm going to inhale. I've got air in my lungs the whole time. You don't taste when you put it in your mouth. You don't taste when you swallow. You taste on the exhale. So it's going to look something like a less ridiculous version of this. Everybody try that. No choking. If you choke, we'll all laugh at you. Remember, the main point is have air in your lungs, move it around your mouth, exhale after you swallow. Okay, now, you may or may not like this particular tequila, you may or may not like silvers, you may or may not drink or like to drink. But did anybody have the exact same experience in their mouth the first time to the second time? What's different? Less intense, softer?
It was less intense in your mouth, but more intense like in your sinus.
Okay. So you're smelling and tasting kind of at the same time. That's really what tasting is. The idea of aroma is a simultaneous smell and taste. It's a little bit crude to say this way, but it's almost like part of what's going on is you're smelling your breath as you exhale. That's part of what tasting really is. Were people picking up on flavors that they just didn't get at all the first time? Like the first time maybe it's just booze, just, I don't know, alcohol. And the second time, oh, there's that sweetness. There's some of that earthiness. Again, we're making this really, really formal, but you can do this with people in 10 seconds. Quick warm up. Rinse your mouth out. Don't worry about that shock reaction. Because what most people are going to do, just like when people attempt to nose a spirit, they're going to shake it up. Why? I don't know. It looks cool. That's what wine people do. The reason you do that in wine is because wine's what, 15% alcohol for the most part around there? You got to agitate it to get some of those volatile elements to really raise up. This is raised up, right? Like it's volatile. That aroma's coming off. You don't have to shake it. If you did, it's fine. It's not broken. It'll go back. Right? But when most people do that shake and then off the top, mostly what you're going to get is alcohol. Similarly, when people are getting stuff in their mouth, when they're starting to taste, what I see people do over and over and over with tequila, with scotch, with other spirits, they're going to splurge maybe. They'll get something really nice. And they smell, oh wow, that smells really good. And then they take that first little sip. They don't do the whole formal warm up, but they know that no, they're not going to do a shot, right? So they take a little sip and they're like, oh, that's not as smooth as I hoped it would be. They're having that minor panic reaction. And then what are they going to do? They're going to either say, I'll just shoot this, I'll give it to somebody, put some ice on this. They got almost there. They got almost to where they were ready to taste. They got ready to taste and then they didn't taste. Honestly, doing this without all the formality, really what you're asking people to do is take 2 sips. I mean, that's the simplest, most straightforward way to think about it is you don't judge a spirit on the first sip. Either because you're not warmed up or because you've just switched from tequila X to tequila Y, or you've gone from a margarita to sipping an añejo neat. That first sip needs to be for rinsing out and for warming up the mouth. That second sip is where you're going to start to taste it. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Well, and then like sip 3, 4, 5, do you have to go back and do it?
No. Good question. You do not have to warm up over and over and over. It really takes one. And that kind of raises the issue of palate cleansing. I don't like to use the term palate cleansing because it's really, really tough to truly cleanse your palate. And when most people are coming to a bar, they're not going to be that pedantic about it. They're here to have a good time. They might be serious about their tasting, but they don't want flavorless white stuff, which is what you use to cleanse your palate. I mean, water crackers and maybe Munster cheese. I mean, stuff that's not very fun. Right? That's what a palate cleanser is. But you have things like sangrita, which is acidic, which will get some of the alcohol out of your mouth, or just water, or plain tortillas. Right? For most people, sipping water between is going to be fine. But yeah, you don't. Once your mouth has gotten over that and your brain shifts into tasting mode, it's not going to go back. It also raises kind of the big paradigmatic issue of we're talking about tasting. And I said at the beginning, we're not talking about drinking. Nobody needs to pay me to tell them how to drink. Right? Now, some of us might be better at it than others. Some of us were born to do it. Right? And honestly, probably most of your customers are here to drink, and that's fine. And you're here to give them an enjoyable experience of drinking. But when people are interested in tasting, tasting's a different thing. And tasting, hopefully, sometimes leads to drinking, but you don't go the other way. Right? Like 4 margaritas in, I'm not saying don't sell them an extra añejo. Right? And I'm not saying don't try to get them to taste, but their opinion at that point is kind of irrelevant. You know? I mean, your 5th drink is usually pretty good. Yeah, mine is. Other questions, particularly about nosing and tasting here? Hang on. Question?
When you talk about all of the volatile, everything that comes off of it, if you leave it out, does it go bad? Does it like?
I don't know if everybody heard that. We're talking about the volatility. If you leave it out, does it go bad? It doesn't go bad, but it goes flat. To be perfectly honest, we pre-poured this because it was such a big group. This has already gone a little bit flat. Alcohol evaporates fast. A lot of what gives the spirit its body is that alcohol. As a rule of thumb, the longer something's in contact with wood, the more it's going to benefit from being out in the open for a little while. But there's kind of a quality curve there where most añejos or XAs, they're going to benefit from sitting in the glass for a few minutes. And they're going to kind of open up, get more complex. At a certain point when, you can't really say, it varies depending on the product, it's then going to start to taper off and go flatter. Yeah. A Blanco should be ready to go. Most tequila should be ready to go out of the glass. And as servers, you certainly don't have time to let it sit there. But you might tell people, especially, because remember, if someone's splashing out for $30, $50 on a, we can't even call it a shot at that point, right, on a taste, hopefully they're going to want to savor it a little bit, and you can let them know, the tasting thing, the 2 sips, and then, and if you continue to sip that every 5 minutes, you're going to find that it opens up, that it presents different aromas as it evolves. Yeah, it's a good question. What's the question back here?
Just a question on the exhaling on that
Yeah.
second sip. Is it more prefer to exhale through your mouth?
That's a really good question. I was doing it through my mouth, and that's the way I teach it. There are people who I study with who I respect immensely who do it through their nose. For me, I get too much intensity. I feel like the vapor burns my nose. So I prefer it through the mouth. It's one of those things where if you do it through your nose and you get a lot more, then do it that way. Yeah, good question. Well, I want to have people nose the 5 glasses. Are there extraneous questions about, it sounds like people feel pretty okay about what we've covered. This was very condensed. Do people have particular questions about what you guys have here? Things that have come up, questions from your customers about selling, about particular products? Like there was the question about Casa Noble. I don't work for the brands, I work with brands, but I'm independent, so I'll turn off the camera, we'll talk shit. Yeah.
Okay, so how do they decide which barrels they're going to use to age tequila?
Good question. So how do they decide which barrels they're going to use to age tequila in? Most tequila is aged in used American whiskey barrels for a number of reasons. American whiskey can only use a barrel once, and then they're legally prohibited from reusing it. So there's always a huge secondary market for these barrels, makes them cheaper. The other thing is, remember that silver tequila is supposed to be good. It's supposed to be sippable already, whereas whiskeys are made to be really strong and really hot and take years in a barrel to soften up. When a spirit is in the barrel, it's having a chemical exchange with the barrel. Color, flavor, aroma. And that means it's taking stuff away from the wood. The wood is getting worn in, it's getting tired. It's getting less and less flavorful. So it would stand to reason that for a lot of tequilas, we're going to want a barrel that's a little more tired. Because so Casa Noble's come up a number of times, and I know you guys sell a lot of it. Has everybody tried Casa Noble? Or people know Casa Noble? Talk about the jump from the Blanco, from the Cristal to the Reposado. That Reposado and that Añejo have huge, huge vanilla chocolate notes. That's new French oak. Their barrels have not been used for anything else. Now that's a fantastic tequila, and they were the pioneers of using new French oak barrels. But they had a big learning curve along the way, and it was really, really hard for them to figure out how to use that, because new wood will just dominate the spirit so fast. Whereas if you're starting with a good Blanco, as they are, as many of the brands are, you often will want a more gentle, subtler approach to it. Yeah? So that's why people continue to use whiskey barrels. Now, how they choose which particular barrels, some places, especially your bigger brands, they don't care. They got a room full of barrels. They're going to pull from them when they're ready. They're going to blend from this lot and previous lots to get a consistent flavor profile, and they're going to ship it out the door. Some places are very, very meticulous. They know that barrel 74 gives them a lot of spice and a little bit of herb, and every time they drain that barrel, it's going to change and get less intense. But they know basically what it gives them, and they're going to use that in a blend. There are products that are innovating. You know, the famous Asombroso, Big Pink Johnson. Those are Bordeaux barrels. That's how it got pink. Right? Now, that might not be the best example, but it's a really obvious example of places that are using other types of barrels, either exclusively, like in that case, or as a blend. So there's a range. Some people just don't care at all. Some people are very, very meticulous about it. But different barrels and different types of barrels will give you different flavors and aromas. But oak is always going to tend towards those barrely aromas of chocolate, vanilla, nuts, coffee, soy, kind of darker aromas. You know, they look, in food and stuff, we're used to them being in darker things. Okay, this might be a total shit show. In fact, it definitely will be. But as people are filing out, can you make sure you get to one of these? There's 2 stations at each of these 2 tables over here. There's one over here, and there's one in the back. Really take the time to go and nose each of those 5 glasses and think about the differences between them and what you might prefer to serve something in. If there are other questions, I'm going to be here. Yeah.
They're all the same, right?
It's all the same product. Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of giving away some of the answers to that because we don't really have a lot of time. All right, well, feel free to come talk if you have any other questions, and thank you guys very much.